It began on a calm morning in the Persian Gulf. The water was silent, the sun's reflection glimmered like shattered glass, and somewhere on the horizon, a massive gray silhouette appeared, an Iranian warship, heading directly toward a U.S. aircraft carrier group. No warnings, no calls, just silent steel slicing through the blue. What followed next would set off one of the most dangerous naval standoffs in modern history, a confrontation that came seconds away from disaster. But was it a show of defiance or a calculated message from Tehran? Stay with me, because what happened next didn't just shake the waters of the Gulf, it rippled across Washington, Tehran, and the entire world. The day the warship moved. It was early morning when radar screens aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower lit up. A fast-moving contact had entered restricted waters. At first, American analysts thought it was another small patrol boat. Iran's Navy frequently performed shadowing operations, but this time was different. It wasn't a speedboat. It was a frigate, fully armed, bearing the flag of the Iranian Navy, moving straight toward the heart of the U.S. carrier group. The message was clear. Iran was testing the limits, and in that moment, thousands of sailors on both sides were pulled into a silent game of nerves. One mistake away from war. The history behind the hostility. To understand why this moment was so explosive, we need to rewind the clock. For decades, the Persian Gulf has been a theater of high-stakes power plays between Iran and the United States. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, relations collapsed, and tensions have simmered ever since. The U.S. Navy patrols these waters to ensure global oil trade, while Iran claims it's defending its sovereignty. Every ship, every movement, every radar ping carries decades of mistrust. The ghosts of past confrontations, like the 1988 USS Vincennes incident, haunt every decision. So when that Iranian warship sailed toward a U.S. carrier, it wasn't just a physical threat. It was a symbolic act, a challenge to American dominance in one of the world's most strategic choke points. The Gulf, a powder keg, waiting to ignite. The Persian Gulf might look serene from above, but it's one of the most dangerous waters on Earth. Beneath the calm waves lies a web of underwater mines, surveillance drones, and patrol boats constantly monitoring each other. The Strait of Hormuz, just 21 miles wide, is where 20% of the world's oil passes through. A single spark here could cripple global markets within hours. So when Iran's warship turned its course toward the U.S. fleet, it wasn't just a regional maneuver. It was a geopolitical tremor with global consequences. The U.S. Navy issued warnings, but the Iranian vessel stayed its course, sailing closer, closer, and then closer still. Washington responds. Back in Washington, the news reached the Pentagon within minutes. Senior defense officials were briefed, and intelligence analysts scrambled to assess Iran's intentions. Was this a prelude to confrontation, or a political message ahead of negotiations? Inside the Situation Room, satellite feeds and live communication from the fleet were displayed in real time. The president was informed. An Iranian frigate was closing in on a U.S. carrier strike group, just 18 nautical miles away. Orders were simply terrifying. Maintain deterrence. Do not fire unless fired upon. The White House held its breath. The world's two most heavily armed militaries were locked in a dance on open water, and every second felt like eternity. Tehran's perspective. Meanwhile, inside Tehran's Naval Command Center, Iranian officers watched the same tense standoff unfold on their own monitors. For them, this wasn't just a challenge, it was a demonstration of pride. Iran's leadership had grown weary of constant U.S. patrols near its shores. They wanted to send a message to the world. We're not afraid. The U.S. fleet formed a defensive perimeter. Fighter jets roared overhead as both sides watched each other through binoculars and targeting systems. Then, at just 4.3 nautical miles, the Iranian frigate made a sudden maneuver, veering directly across the U.S. carrier's path. It was a moment frozen in time. One wrong move and two nations could be at war. American sailors stood ready at battle stations, fingers hovering over weapons controls. The U.S. commander issued a final warning alter course, or we will engage seconds ticked by. The Iranian vessel slowed. The radio crackled. Then, silence. Slowly, the Iranian ship turned away, drifting off into the horizon. Crisis averted, but just barely. The message sent and received after the warship withdrew, both sides spun the story their own way. The U.S. called it a successful de-escalation, Iran called it a show of strength. But make no mistake, messages had been sent and received, loud and clear. For the U.S., it was a reminder that Iran was willing to play a dangerous game of brinkmanship. For Tehran, it was proof that they could stare down the world's most powerful navy and live to tell about it. Behind closed doors, intelligence analysts debated what it really meant. Was it a prelude to a larger conflict, a test of U.S. resolve, or simply a piece of theater meant for Iranian audiences? No one could be sure. The media firestorm. When the story broke, headlines exploded across the world. Iranian warship confronts U.S. carrier. News networks ran the footage on loop. Pundits debated whether this was the beginning of another Gulf crisis. Markets reacted instantly. Oil prices spiked and investors panicked. In Iran, state media celebrated what they called the bravery of the Revolutionary Navy. They knew that if the Iranian ship had fired even one shot, they'd have to respond with overwhelming force, and that would have unleashed chaos across the Gulf. It wasn't fear, one sailor later said. It was the realization that one wrong move could change history. The aftermath, behind diplomatic doors. In the days that followed, diplomacy worked overtime. Secret backchannels opened between Oman, Qatar, and European intermediaries to calm the situation. Both Washington and Tehran knew that a single escalation could spiral out of control. Quietly, both sides agreed to de-escalate naval activities for the next few weeks. But beneath the public calm, intelligence reports warned that Iranian forces were preparing new exercises. The tension hadn't disappeared. It had simply gone quiet. And quiet, in the Gulf, is often more dangerous than noise. The global ripple effect. The confrontation may have lasted only hours, but its impact was global. Nations dependent on Middle Eastern oil began rethinking their energy security. Defense alliances in the region, from Saudi Arabia to Israel. A single Iranian warship had reshaped diplomatic conversations across continents. It showed how fragile the balance of power truly was, and how one spark could ignite an inferno of consequences. The Intelligence After Action Report. Weeks later, a classified U.S. Navy report leaked to the media. It detailed how close the confrontation came to disaster. According to the report, one Iranian missile system had locked onto a U.S. fighter jet for nearly 7 seconds before disengaging. That lock could have been interpreted as an act of war. The report concluded that both sides had displayed extreme discipline under high stress, but also warned that future incidents may not end peacefully. The takeaway was clear. The margin between deterrence and destruction was frighteningly thin. What the future holds today, the shadow of that confrontation still lingers. Both nations continue to patrol the Gulf, their ships often just miles apart. The tension remains like a storm on the horizon, unseen but always there. Every new exercise, every intercepted drone, every political speech reignites the memory of that day when two steel giants nearly collided. And while diplomacy continues to patch the wounds, the truth is clear. The line between peace and war is drawn thinner than ever before. A storm that never broke. When Iran sent its warship toward a U.S. carrier, it wasn't just testing naval boundaries. It was testing fate itself. What followed was a rare moment of human restraint amid chaos, a whisper of war that never became a roar. The ocean has no memory, but the people who lived through that day will never forget the sight. A lone warship, defying the might of a superpower, and a carrier holding its breath as the world watched. War didn't come that day, but peace too, never fully returned. It remained suspended, like the stillness before a storm. If this story left you on edge, imagine how close we really came to another global conflict. History often hides its closest calls, but the Persian Gulf standoff reminds us just how fragile peace can be. If you want more deep dives into hidden conflicts, secret missions, and the untold moments that shaped our world, subscribe, like, and share this video. Because the next time the waves rise, we might not be so lucky.